Hi, my name is David Luperker. Welcome to the webinar Organizing for Success, the 5 steps to implementing standard and documented operating procedures. I appreciate your willingness to join me today. I've got a special offer that at the end of the program, I'm going to give you some tools to do this more quickly. So please stick with me. And look, if you've got questions toward the end of this program, I am easy to reach. You'll see at the end of the program, I'll share both my email address and phone number, so feel free to follow up with me. I want you to know I have been where you are. I've been sitting in a similar seat, running a construction company, trying to figure out how to get it all done. So just a quick kind of backstory here. Several years ago, developing a company, it was growing, and heard about a homeowner whose contractor had gone bankrupt. And she contacted me about finishing the job. Now, I had several friends, contractor associates, say don't do this. So 3 key lessons here. Number 1, I took the job, but in looking back, taking any job where a contractor has gone bankrupt, the homeowner's frustration and anger does get transferred. So look, if you find yourself in a similar place, my general suggestion would be don't take the job. There's just too much baggage that goes with it. Number 2, when I took this job, it had been started, the previous contractor, and this was a large project, $400,000 whole house remodel, biggest job I'd ever done. Contractor had gotten, 3 months into it and then declared bankruptcy, kind of leaving the homeowner in the middle, of an unfinished project. So I really did want to help her. Took it over in October and was in the Great Falls area, which is Northern Virginia, just south of Washington, D.C., very affluent area. And that particular winter hadn't happened before and hadn't happened since, as far as I know, 18 ice storms, literally 18. And because this was a whole house remodel, somehow some part of the house was open. We had tarps. With the ice, the tarps would tear, expose the interior of the home, led to more cleanup, more damage. So that was strike 2. Strike 3, and this kind of goes back to my own naivete, is I took the job over, began working, and unbeknownst to me, when a contractor, I hadn't really thought about it, when a contractor goes bankrupt, they don't pay any of their bills. So the homeowner had been paying for work she thought was being done, and after about 90 days, she started getting construction liens. So she was having to write a second check to get these people paid. Well, it was all well and good because about 3 months later, after I was involved, and remember, 6 months into the job at this point, 3 months in for me, building on the previous contractor, what he had done. But 3 months into my project, working on her house, my employees on site, my subcontractors on site, my suppliers providing materials, she informed me that she'd run out of money. And she'd run out of money because of the bills she'd had to pay twice. Now, she did her best to reassure me that, I will get the money, I will get the money, I will get the money. It took 60 days. It's almost 2 months. And again, this is my subcontractors, my suppliers, my employees. You know that it takes time to build these critical relationships. And when you find a good sub, when you find a good supplier, look, you guys can work together and you can accomplish a lot. When you don't complete, your promises in, that relationship, it creates a problem. So here I had suppliers, that I couldn't pay, that I had to call and say, it's coming. Subcontractors, it's coming. But they're upset, and they're upset with me because they were responding to my request to get work done, and now I couldn't pay them. I did go ahead and pay my employees when the savings, to keep this going. And the homeowner did get the additional funds. Like I said, it took about 2 months. But this project probably went in total about 10 months, large project. And at the end of this thing, look, I was not only physically exhausted, I was financially tapped out. I was emotionally tapped out. And honestly, I questioned how I even got myself into this and what had happened that I took on a job like this because people had warned me. And so I even wondered at the end of this year, and very challenging year, should I even get out of the industry? You know, am I set to do this? Should I be doing this work based on, you know, this huge mistake that I made? And look, for those of you listening, you may have done something similar, but oftentimes, you know, from experiences like this, some unique learning comes. And that was the case with me, because at the end of this project, one of the contractors who told me not to do it, he was kind of following what was going on, and when the job was done, he said, "What are you going to do now?" And I said, "I don't know. I really don't know. I'm spent." And he just said, "Why don't you come to work for me? You don't have to manage projects. You don't have to, you know, run the production side. Just sell. I know you can sell. So just come and sell with me." And so it was the best offer I had on the table. So I took him up on it. And I said, "You know, let's go ahead and do that." So I went from running my own business to being an employee, but I quickly learned that this contractor actually had been in commercial construction. In commercial construction, they're really focused on budget and timing. You give people a commitment. These are people's offices. They're their workspaces. So schedule and budget is everything. So on the commercial side, he had seen how well organized commercial construction companies ran. And he brought those lessons to his residential remodeling company. And so I got to see how a well-run company functioned. He had written job descriptions for each person in the company. And what that did is each person then was familiar with what was expected. And the proof in the pudding came when he wasn't there. The company actually ran better. It was impressive to watch because he had good people, they knew what was expected, and he had empowered them to work in their job to the benefit of the company and the client. And I got to see this all work. And I got to see, gosh, when things are organized like this, it is a good setting. It is profitable. You let people succeed, and trust me, good people want responsibility. So Mark and I worked together for about a year. But in that year, I did discover I was an entrepreneur. And just simply speaking, what that means is I discovered I was psychologically unemployable. I'd been on my own for too long because I would go see Mark, the owner of the company, and say, "Let's do this. I think you can do this better." And he'd say, "Nope, I don't think so." "Dave, nope, I don't think so." And I'd make numerous suggestions, and he'd say, "In essence, it's my company. This is how we do this here." And guess what? As an owner, that is his right and his privilege. So in entirely amiable fashion, and remember, I'd been in business for a while, so I was getting calls from people asking if I was available for additional projects. So after about a year, I went back into business on my own. And again, smooth transition. I was re-energized and really had learned what not to do in addition to what to do in a successful company. Well, about 3 months after I went back into business on my own, my wife and I had our first child. Does everyone know what colic is? Because our son had colic. What that means is he never slept for more than 90 minutes. And this actually went on for 7 months, 7 very long months. So after about 6 weeks of my son, never sleeping for more than 90 minutes, my wife informed me. She said, "I just can't do this. I need help." So we arrived at an arrangement where she would keep him till 3 or 3:30 in the morning. And then I would take him when he woke up at 4:30 or 5 and keep him until 9 a.m. so that she could have, 6 hours of uninterrupted rest. Excuse me. So Mark had shown me how to do this because I had seen, you can just document expectations. So I took the first 2 hours because remember, I wasn't coming to work now till 9 a.m. So starting at 7, which was my usual starting time, I just documented all the things that went on between 7 and 9 a.m. And you all have similar processes. There are certain things you do at the beginning of every day. So I documented those processes, and I went to my production manager, great lead carpenter, very skilled, and I said, Steve, you got to help me. So for the first 2 hours of every day, I'm going to go through, a schedule once a week with you so that you know what jobs we're working on, what the schedule is, what employees need to be on certain jobs, what subcontractors and materials need to be. And I just delegated this. I just documented what I was doing between 7 and 9, put it on paper and said, this is what you'll do. And so we met, in the afternoon, once, twice, 3 times a week so I could communicate those expectations. He took over. I started, working with my son, getting him at about 5 in the morning and keeping him till 9, not coming in till 9:30 in the morning. And so there were a couple bumps on the road, but by and large, it worked. Because Steve was just doing what I had done, and I had documented what those first 2 hours, what the processes were. So he was just following my documented processes. So this went on, and after about 7 months, like somebody flipping a switch, if you've ever been around a child with colic, it ends. It just stops. So here I was, spending then this time with my son between 6:30 or 7 till 9, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being there. I enjoyed spending time with him one-on-one. And it was one of those eureka moments when I realized, gosh, I've got this new baby. I like spending time here. I don't want to spend the next 10 years like I spent the last 10. So what I want to do is, just like Mark had done with his company, I want to begin documenting company expectations and giving it to key people in my company. I began working on this, and it started with Steve, the lead carpenter. It went to the office manager, and I just began creating documented systems because, again, these were things I was doing regularly, all right? And I want to say to you, even though I can't see you, that you have processes you follow. So let's just go ahead and go to the next step and begin creating a documented system. And the system's nothing more than a documented process that ensures consistent results by making sure that some task is done the same way time after time after time. So you already have processes in your company. So what I wanted to do is remove this from being in my head to putting it on paper, because number one, I get to delegate this, but number two, then the people I might work with are very clear about what's expected. So I began putting this together. Like I said, it started with Steve in the morning, and I began to see that I could do this with the office manager. I could do it with the carpenter. And there's a very clear reason for this. So look at the screen, and you'll see the 16 or 17 different responsibilities in any construction company. You can look at the list. I usually ask company owners, take a look, and in 30 seconds, tell me how many of these responsibilities you're involved with in your company. In all honesty, I'll frequently get answers 8, 10, 12, and even some people saying, I'm involved in all of them. All right, so here's the key takeaway. Imagine drawing an imaginary line under owner and president. So that we're going to put that line there, and then I'm going to say working above that line is working on your business. And working on your business is a more strategic role. It's deciding, are we growing? What do we sell? Who are we selling to? If we're growing, where are the clients we're working with? If we're growing, are there additional projects that we want to do? If we're growing, do we need to bring in additional personnel? When do we need to bring those people in? It really is looking 3, 6, 9 months down the road and saying, where are we going? Because you as the owner, this is your strategic role to chart the future of the company. Now, if we go below the line, That's working in the business, the general manager, production, sales, in all the elements involved with selling and producing work. Working in your business then produces what you've sold. But my key question is this: if you've got 7, 8, 9 different roles working in your business, how much time is left to work on the business? And usually the answer is little or none. So look, someone has to take a strategic role in your company. In my experience, and this is myself included, is my company was built reactively. And I reacted to client request instead of really charting where I wanted to go. What kind of jobs did we want to do? What was I best at? So that's what we're going to tackle here in about the next 30 minutes, is beginning to re-engineer your company to allow you to do what you do best, and then empower key people in your company to do those other elements that you can delegate or outsource, so that you each not just maximize your skills, but you maximize profitability and you maximize the strength of each person in your company. So before we begin creating this system, we need to define, who is involved in the company. So I gave you a list here, and you begin to see, because these functions, these responsibilities are present in every company. So instead of saying, let's systematize what I'm doing now, I want you to instead step back and say, let's just look 12 months down the road. And gosh, if the company was running the way I wanted, what would that look like? All right, what are the annual sales? And gosh, if I can look at what the company looks like 12 months from now, what if I could create a model to really begin to then create a company to support that? So oftentimes I'll have owners say, I'm not quite sure what that looks like. That's okay, because there are people in your area who've done what you want to do. There's somebody who's already gone through that level of development. So I've been a member of NARI, the National Association of the Remodeling Industry, since like 1980. And they have remodeling chapters all over the country. So in Washington, D.C., a very strong chapter, and it allowed me to meet and work with other established business owners. If there's not a NARI chapter in your area, there's oftentimes the NAHB, which is National Association of Home Builders. There's a Remodelers Council in your area, again, made up of professional contractors in your area. Now, even without, NARI or, the Remodelers Council, I'm sure in your area you can look and see there's 1, 2, or 3 companies that you admire. You've admired them because of what they've built. So here's my recommendation, and I did this. I contacted one of the best companies in the Washington, D.C. area. Name of the company was BOA Builders, and again, this goes back a while. But I contacted Josh Baker and said, I'm a member of NARI, new member, and I'm just very impressed with the company you've built. Can I take you out to lunch, and can you tell me, can we talk about how you grew your company? What do you think the response was? Well, the response was yes. And I want you to know that a unique part of the remodeling industry is how generous business owners are with sharing their experience. And this is why I recommend, either a NARI chapter or the Remodelers Council, because these business owners are very generous. They're happy to share their experience. So I contacted Josh, led to one lunch, led to a second, led to a third, led to a fourth. And he helped me understand, in growing, what to look for, what were going to be the bumps in the road, what should I be aware of. So he was helping me not only understand what the organization would look like, but what to be aware of and how to prepare for these different hurdles that were coming down the road. So in a very informal way, he began to mentor me, and it made a huge difference. So when you think about how you want to grow your company, don't just make it up. Contact somebody in your area who you admire, who's successful at what they do. And honestly, just call them. Give them a free lunch. Give them a free breakfast. I'm impressed with what you've done. How did you grow your company? Can you meet? Can we talk more? I think he'll be impressed with the response because older contractors are happy to share the experience. Simply, don't recreate the wheel. Let somebody tell you how they did it and let them give you some shortcuts to make this easier because the industry is hard enough as it is. So what I want you to do is once you kind of have a sense of this model of where you want to go, then I want you to create an organizational chart. And this really identifies the key roles in your company. Now, I identified this in this list, but let's look at this in the form of a organizational chart. So you see under the owner, there's the three legs of sales, production, and admin. Under sales, marketing, design, and estimating. Under production, and I'm going to say this is like $1 million a year company. So here's 3 lead carpenters and helper. And under admin, there's general accounting, along with the office flow, which is then managing each of your projects and documenting, the paper trail that supports each project. So there is a sample organizational chart for you. So really you can get that beginning model from someone more experienced. And honestly, let's say you're $1 million company yourself and you're growing to 1.2 million. You're looking at this and you know what it takes to support a $1 million a year company. Well, if we're going to 1.2, maybe we need to bring on another lead carpenter. Maybe we need to bring on another helper. So you begin to forecast what's necessary. And the value of this is instead of reacting, saying, we need help. We've grown. How do we find this help? This organizational chart lets you know ahead of time what will we need and when will we need it. And that's key to healthy growth. So once you have that organizational chart, then I want you to begin to populate that organizational chart and put someone's name in each box. And remember, if you're a small company, 1 or 2 people, your name is going to be in virtually every box. But that's okay because it's not going to stay that way. So here's again a sample. I populated the boxes. And really what I want owners to begin to see, because we've taken the list of tasks in any traditional construction company, and now we've begun to compartmentalize those roles and those responsibilities on this organizational chart. So many times when the owners see this, excuse me, they'll say, gosh, I see why I'm working 70 hours a week. I've got 8 different organizational responsibilities in my company. And I'll say, you know what? That's where you are now. Let's not stay there. Let's begin to look at what you can delegate, because look, as you see your name in these different organizational responsibilities, you'll see certain things you like doing, you're good at. You'll see other things that you may not like doing, and you're just doing it because it's required. But as you look at it, it doesn't excite you. It's a sinking feeling, and it's a job you'd rather not be doing. And I'm sure when I say that, each one of you understand this. So let's just take a couple of these things. I'm going to take marketing, and I'm going to take accounting. Because oftentimes in small companies, owners will do this themselves because they think they have to. And they will do either their own accounting or they'll have a spouse assisting with accounting. And one of the first things I say to any good company is, you weren't trained as an accountant, you weren't trained as a bookkeeper, it's not what you do. Let's delegate that to someone who does it better and faster. All right, so let's just take those 2 things. Marketing. Now, consistent marketing might be 2 or 3 things that you do every month to contact past clients. Could be a newsletter, could be pardon my dust mailings to local job sites, could be making sure that signage is in place, could be following and updating your website. It's not a full-time job. So key to this is let me find a marketing person, people who do nothing but marketing, review what I need, and I've got to tell you, I've done this. And a marketing person will look at this and say, okay, I could do this in 10 hours a month. And so we'll decide on some specific responsibilities. And if they're good, they'll not only look at what I'm doing, they'll say, have you thought about doing this? Because it's what they do. So suddenly, and think of, outsourcing this to a good person, just like a subcontractor. You're bringing in a good person, bringing value to your company and allowing them to do what they do best. So right off the bat, I may be able to outsource this marketing to a key person. And let's come over here to accounting. So Chris is doing this now, and Chris could be, the owner's wife. It could be the owner themselves. So there's data entry, then there's putting together the job cost reports, getting, month-end reports. How are we doing on each one of these jobs? Look, there's a company I have nationally that will assist training your key person so that the information is put in correctly, so it can produce the monthly reports giving you the information you need. So oftentimes, gosh, I have owners spending 5-10 hours a week doing data entry and accounting. And I'm going to say, I want to take that off your table. All right? We can get somebody else to do this. Now, your first question is going to be, well, there's a cost. You're right. So let's look at marketing. I'm going to offload, 10 or 12 hours a week to a marketing person. And I'm going to offload another 10 hours a week to an accounting person. So realistically, I'm going to give you back 10 hours a week of your time. Now, in those 10 hours, I want you to keep 5 hours a week to spend more time with your kids, to go exercise, to go take a walk, with your wife. That's your time. But I want to take the other 5 hours a week, and I want to say, if I gave you another 5 hours a week just to sell, and look, as I'm speaking with most owners, and I know from experience, we're not spending more than 5 to 10 hours a week selling because we're so busy running the business, putting together estimates, and making sure the jobs are running properly. So if I could add another 5 hours a week, 20 hours a month, 240 hours a year to your sales focus, what could that mean in regards to additional sales? So when I've done this with groups, I've been told, gosh, I could generate anywhere from another 100,000 to 500,000 in additional sales on an annual basis, because I've given you that time to focus on what you do best. So let's just take that $100,000 figure. If you generated another $100,000 in sales, would you have then the money to pay for a part-time marketing person? Would you have the money to pay for a part-time accounting person? And the answer is yes. And I want you to understand that not only will they do it better, but they'll do it faster. Because again, like a good subcontractor, let's bring in to let them do what they do best. So once we've decided which of these roles we want to outsource or delegate, then we need to create, what is the job description? What do I want them to do? So what I'm going to talk to you about is a job description by task. And if we come back to this org chart, if I'm outsourcing or delegating my accounting, and look, there can be people in your community who have kids, younger children. Children go to school at 9, they get out at 3, and then the parent is taking the child to whatever music or athletic event, the things that we've all done. There are bookkeepers and accountants right in your school, your church that would love, a 2 to 4 hour a day job, allowing them to work with their schedule, but giving them a part-time income. So look, these opportunities exist, these people exist that are there ready to help you. So if I'm bringing in somebody to assist me with accounting, I already know the things that I'm doing. So I can just begin to outline each of the things I'm doing in regards to data entry. Then I can go to this new person and say, here's what I'd like you to do. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to bring someone like you to delegate this to. And look, if you've got the right accounting person, number one, they'll be familiar with it. They should be familiar with working with QuickBooks. And they'll say, I see what you're doing. I can do this faster. A good person will make suggestions and augment what you're doing because it's what they do best. So you're going to take those things you're doing, and you can write a position description by task. I'm just using those two examples, accounting and marketing. And I'm going to put together a job description by task. Sit down with the right person, and then collaboratively, we're going to create an updated position description. And here's the deal. If a prospective employee works with you to author this position description, if they help write it, they own it. All right, and so I want to do this collaboratively. Now let's pretend you've got a lead carpenter, and let's look at your office manager. So we're going to the lead carpenter, Sam, and the admin, Chris. And I want to do this with employees I already have because let's say Chris has been my administrative office manager and been with me for 10 years. I'll ask owners, what would happen if you lost your office manager? If due to an accident or illness, they couldn't come into work and they were gone for 6 weeks. And oftentimes the answer is, the company wouldn't keep running because this person is so key and pivotal to running company operations that they know and the owner knows that they're pivotal for things to continue running properly. Same thing with the good lead carpenter. If you've got a good lead that's been with you for 5 years or longer, all right, you complement each other. So what I want you to do with existing employees is to look at the office manager and say, let's begin to document your job by task. I want to capture historically what you're doing. And I want to note what it is you do on a weekly basis. Because when you go on vacation, it will make it easier for me to make sure that these things are done in a consistent fashion. Let's pretend that the company's growing. And Chris, is looking at these things that are all being done, and she needs some help. I could take her position description, and let's say we've identified 12 primary responsibilities. And I want you to understand in any job, there's anywhere from 8 to 12 primary responsibilities that people are responsible for. And I'll show you an example here in just a minute. But if I've identified 12 primary administrative responsibilities, and Chris says I need some help, I can then look at that position description, and I could take 4 of those responsibilities and give them to an accounting assistant. Give them to an admin assistant because we've identified what those responsibilities are. So I want to, number one, capture that historical knowledge from people who've been with the company and really document what that job is. And I want to do that with these key people to ensure that we're doing it properly. Let's go ahead and do this with the lead carpenter. So from my own company, here are the 8 primary responsibilities, from Sam, the lead carpenter. I wanted him to document what he did before the project started. Because in my company, once we created the job package and I handed that job package, that field file to Sam, that he would oversee the purchase orders because he's running the job, to take care of all job site protection, to actually run the pre-construction meeting. And remember, these are procedures we already have. All I'm doing now is putting them on paper and documenting them so that they're very clear. Expectations are clear. I want them to be very clear about the production procedures they'll follow during construction. And look, you all have production procedures. So let's just put them on paper so that not only I can document what my good lead carpenter is doing, but this could also be a training material for carpenters that I add. I wanted Sam to oversee change orders, which would include the form and how to process it, tool sign in and return if it was company tools, and the job closeout. So there you see a job description by task for the lead carpenter. Now let's come back here and let's say you've got more than one lead carpenter. I'm going to take the most capable, the most experienced, and I'm going to put together this position description first because I want to document what my best lead carpenter does. And let's say I've got two more people, two more leads. And in this case, it's Joe and Paul. Once I document that position description with Sam, then I'm going to sit down with Joe and Paul and say, we have documented what we want lead carpenters in this company to do and what they'll be responsible for. Let's review this. And I want each person to buy in to that position description, because now each one are working toward that common goal. Okay, begin to see how this works? So I want everyone, I'm going to look at my org chart, and I'm going to start with things that I want to delegate. So in my case, I located marketing and accounting, so I could bring in some key people to assist me that would allow me to focus on sales. And then I also want to focus on my admin manager, my lead carpenter, and really begin to create clear expectations, not only for people working with me, but when it comes to hiring additional carpenters, that I can very clearly review the responsibilities in my company as a lead carpenter. And we've documented this. So I can not only say, are you a good lead carpenter? I can now begin to focus on the responsibilities. Do you have experience in each one of these areas? So it makes my interviewing better, and I can get specific answers. And trust me, as you go through specific questions and see how your candidates respond, you'll know who's better because you're asking the right questions. So if I put together this job description by task, now look, there's procedures that we follow under each one of these. So if I'm in, any kind of group of people, you're going to say, how do I document all this? I mean, this is a lot of material. Well, look, I'm going to go back to Sam, my lead carpenter. I'm going to say, Sam, A, production procedures before the job starts. I'm going to hand him a handheld tape recorder. I'm going to say, tell me the production procedures you follow before the project starts. 10 minutes, 15 minutes max, he can explain that. I can go to number 2, item B. How do you process purchase orders? In 10 minutes, he can explain it and point out the appropriate form. How about all job-related protection? The things that we do in regards to dust walls, floor covering, daily cleanup at the end. How do you do this? And honestly, this is a 10, 12-minute description that, in this case, Sam is already doing it. And so I want Sam to begin documenting what he does. And because he's already doing it, he can just speak that into the tape recorder. I can do the same thing with Chris in admin. Or if I'm defining what I'm doing in marketing and accounting, again, speaking into a handheld tape recorder. I can then take that recording, send it to a secretarial or transcriptional service, transcriptionist, and go onto Google. You can find both in your area. And within a matter of days, they can take that recording and create a written digital document outlining, again, just what we said, first the job description, and then outlining the procedures that follow. Now look, with all this computer development, you can also get voice recognition software, and you might be able to record it right into the computer. Now understand, when you get the document back, either on voice recognition software or a transcriptionist, there's going to be some errors. There's going to be some editing. But look, this is going to be, 15, 20-page document. You could hire a high school English student, pay him 10 or 12 bucks an hour just to do this editing, just to clean it up. Once it's cleaned up, then hand it back to Sam, the lead carpenter, to Chris, the office manager. You can look at anything you delegated in admin or marketing and just say, does this read properly? Is this clear? Is this what I want? And if it has to do with Sam, the lead carpenter, or Chris, the office manager, you can just say to them, is this correct? Did we document this properly? And so what you've done is very simply, you've identified the key responsibilities, you've documented the procedures, and you've put it into writing. Now look, there's an interesting process that takes place because you've got key people if you have employees. And there are certain employees that are willing to put in extra time. They're committed to your company. If they see where you're going, they want to help support the growth. And so trust me when I say that good people want responsibility. Going through this process will identify who those good people are. They'll participate. They'll ask what else they can do. But you'll find in every company, there may be one or two employees that don't want to go, the extra mile. And what they're doing is telling you, this is a job. I want to come in the morning, I want to do my work, and I want to go home at night. So this allows you to begin understanding who the key players are in your company so that as the company grows, you know who to reward, you know who to talk to. And honestly, part of this is just beginning to share the responsibility of growing a business. It's a burden. So let's bring in and work with good people to grow this together. So when you're doing both this job description and procedures, it is collaborative. So it's important you ask key employees to bring in your staff. Your staff is in an excellent position to really define and systematize what they're doing. It helps if the position becomes vacant, needs to be refilled. It also helps with training. But your input as the owner is necessary to ensure that the systems and procedures are what you want and they maintain the standards of your company. So simply speaking, the long-range goal is to put together an employee manual for each position in the company. Section 1, company policies. Look, I've got a sample company policy manual I can provide to you. It's a Word doc. You customize it for your company. But please, if you do that, make sure you take it to a local employment attorney to make sure you're not violating any local or state employment policies. That's one way to get a company policy, a manual. You can also go to software stores. There are standardized company policy manuals. What I have is specifically for a construction company. So I can assist you with that. Section 2 is the org chart in their employee manual. We've just done that. Section 3 is their job description by task. And then Section 4 is the standard operating procedures. So we've just put this together. And I wanted to bring it forward in a manual because if I start doing this with each role in the company, what I'm doing is effectively delegating expectations, putting this in writing. Key people who know what's expected, I'm allowing them and empowering them to do their job. The company, the employees become less dependent on me. So where do I start? I want to start where mistakes are being made. If people are coming to constantly ask for direction, and certainly to give some job away that I don't like doing. But here's the key point. As an owner, your time, conservatively, is worth $100 an hour. It just is. And so if there's any function in your company, let's go back to the org chart here, and you could pay $15, $25, even $35 an hour if you could pay somebody to do this. Those are the roles in time that you should be delegating. Because if you're doing this function, you're not saving $15 to $35 an hour. You're costing your company strategically $65, $75 an hour. Because if you're doing that lower wage job, no one strategically is guiding the company and working on the business to guide that future growth. So this is so important to letting you do what you do best and bringing in key people. And the right people, this is where the sum of the parts is greater. And so if we bring in the right people, it's not 1 and 1 equals 2. It's these key people equal 5, equal 6. Because strategically, we've created a strong company complementing people's skills, toward a common goal. Good employees want this. They want to see a company that has strategic growth. They're growing. They see an owner working on the business because that ensures their financial security. So the benefit simply is this. Standard procedures assure you, the owner, that specific job functions in your business will be performed the way you want them to be performed, whether you're at the office, on the job site, or on the beach. It assures you that you can expect consistent results from your staff. So let me kind of end here with just one story. Years ago, working with a cabinet manufacturer in the Bay Area, and he wanted to leave. He wanted to go on a 1-month vacation in Scotland, and he had a lot of things going on in his business, a lot of cabinet orders, and he was really concerned about leaving. But he had some lead time, so about 6 months before he was planning to go, he started letting people know, I'm going to be gone, but let's review, what you're doing, because when I'm gone, you'll be doing this. You'll be responsible. And what he continued to communicate is, if something comes up, make the decision. I trust you to make the right decision. So the trip came. He went on the trip, came back a month later, and I had to ask, how'd it go? And he said, there were a couple little bumps in the road, but he said it went fine. And then he followed up with, he said, this is probably the best thing I've ever done to support the growth of my company. Because number one, I was clear about what I expected from my key people, but number two, I empowered them to make decisions. And I let them know that I trusted them to make the right decision. And here's the key point I want to make to you is good employees want responsibility. If we have the right employees, we can delegate effectively, and it will allow you as the owner more time to work on the business, because this is a true win-win. You're working on the business, supports key employees, delivering the results you need so that the company continues to grow. So here's a special bonus. I mentioned to you that thank you for joining me for this program. I already have a written manual how to manage a successful remodeling company. And I have written 21 construction-specific job descriptions with written operating procedures and checklist. This is a great starting point. It gives you a template to work from. Now look, 60 to 70% of these job descriptions are applicable to what you're doing. You will have to customize to your business the other 30 or 40%, but you won't have to start from scratch. I want to give this to you as a benefit to you attending this webinar and sitting through this. So please, if you have questions at the conclusion of this webinar, david@remodelforce.com, there's my number, 303-442-3702. If you've got questions or would like this manual, please contact me, and this is the benefit. This is what I want to give to you for attending this program. So again, thank you for joining me. If you have questions and or comments, please let me know. Thank you so much. I look forward to hearing from you. Bye-bye.